This episode is brought to you by RLD Group, on a mission to reboot leadership drive, eradicate burnout in tech, and help transform technical experts lacking people leadership skills from being a company's biggest liability into their greatest asset. Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre is a no BS conversation with a female executive who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always on, never good enough, we'll replace you today machine called the tech space. This show will help you reboot your leadership drive. Here's Lisa.
The question for you today, it's been about 2 years. Are you feeling like there's just nothing left to give? That you're just so overwhelmed, you don't even know what to do anymore. And you're just, it's not even a question of if you're burnt out anymore, you kind of know you are. Well, if that resonates with you or anyone on your team that you lead or anyone in the family anyone in your family that you love, I've got the right person with us today on Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. Colleen, Hauk, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to our conversation. That's for sure.
You know, I have to tell everybody this genuine thing you're experiencing when we talk. Colleen and I bonded over burnout. We both have our own burnout stories. We both are on a mission to eradicate burnout. Like there's a lot in common here. And what I know is when you join forces, when you have conversation, when you dig into it, there are nuggets that even though you've lived it yourself, you learn from other people. So Colleen, I'm just going to give a quick little snippet. Listen, Colleen's appeared in Forbes Best Self, and she delivered keynotes and trainings to Fortune 500 companies such as Dell, Pfizer, Panasonic, Merck, and New York Life. There's more to this, but I just want to pause on that for a second and ask you, what's the common theme you're seeing as you're speaking to those types of organizations with the work that you do?
Yeah, so it's industry agnostic. It is burnout, but I would say the common thread that I've seen even before the pandemic, but more so in the last 2 years, is that burnout among kind of the middle management, those leaders. So even though just Gallup recently reported within the last, couple of months, that even though we're starting to see burnout subside or reduce among frontline employees or the C-suite, we are not seeing that same hold true for the middle managers, those frontline leaders who are so, important to the organization. And what I like to say is they're just sandwiched in between everything that's coming from the top and all of the questions and uncertainty that's coming from their employees. So that has been kind of the through line, and what has stayed consistent over time is that the middle managers are the ones suffering the most from burnout.
Oh my gosh. For all you middle managers out there, I know you're all shaking your head like, yep, I've been doing everything I can on those recharge days not to send emails to my employees. And I've been doing everything I can when the upper level is asking me for things to just like hold it together. And I'm doing the stay interviews and I'm having the conversations and I'm bringing my heart to work. And it's exhausting. Right? I think you just shared with me, let me say it differently. I believe in the next coming months, there's actually a new LinkedIn training you're doing on this topic.
Yes, specifically.
Shed some light on that for us. Yeah.
Yes. So I was asked to put together a training specifically on how leaders can help reduce burnout for themselves and their team. And exactly like you said, Lisa, there are so many different strategies and tactics that I know most, phenomenal leaders are implementing to try to reduce the burnout for their team and themselves. But it's potentially only changing things slightly. And, as we're getting closer and closer to coming out of the, states of emergency and uncertainty, and we start to get more settled in, we hope to see that burnout will be mitigated. But it is definitely still an issue that too many leaders are continuing to face.
The fact that you have a LinkedIn class on this tells me that you know things other people don't, right? Like I always tell you when I talk to you, like, oh my gosh, and I'll read it here, right? You're so much, you just have so much skill in the different areas and how people are picking up on your message. I mean, if Forbes comes to you and you're contributing, that's a big deal, right? When you have two books, you co-authoring two books, the thing that I know about what you're packaging for people, and I'm going to call it packaging because I think it's useful, are, the bite-sized mindset and actions you can take to actually not flame out, right? Because I know like the cynicism kicks in, and I'm sure a lot of your keynotes are inspirational, like, okay, if you're feeling this way, you might be burnt out. But if we could give them something right now to ponder, reflect on, a question to ask themselves, or something for them to just see where they are in the process of navigating burnout, what are some tangible, practical things that you share with people when they just show up like, yep, you got me, I'm there? Like, how can we help them right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm really about how you can assess your own stress signals. I think that's one of the big challenges. So, most people who are middle managers, they're in leadership. They're obviously high performing individuals. And the challenge with high performers is that they tend to have this common belief that I'm supposed to push hard. I'm supposed to drive. I'm supposed to feel like things are hard, and I work extra hours and I don't sleep. But that's almost embedded into the philosophy of what a high performer should be doing. But the challenge is that we can only sustain that for so long, and there's breaking points, or there's exponential levels of that, right? So yes, I'm all about working hard and pushing beyond my comfort, but what are the exponential layers of that, and where does it become this breaking point? So too many high performers just kind of get in this set it and move mode, and they don't stop to realize that they have hit beyond capacity. So it's really important for people to have this awareness of what their own stress signals are. And we're all going to experience stress, right? There's certain good stress that we want to be having, but it's about acknowledging when that stress becomes so much that you need to readjust. So I equate it when I deliver my keynote. I actually have a balance board, Lisa, that I bring out on stage, and I take off my shoes, I stand on this balance board, and I talk about how personal trainers want you on this balance board to be focusing on different muscle groups at a particular time. But if you're focusing on one muscle group for, say, several minutes, at some point that muscle is fatigued, and it sends a signal to the brain. The brain essentially has two choices: either ignore it and push and push and push through until that muscle is so wiped out you fall off that board. Or the brain can choose to listen to those initial signs of fatigue and shift their focus on the board and allow that muscle to recover and rejuvenate before going back. It is the same thing that we need to be doing in our own lives, is acknowledging when we feel that fatigue, when we have that stress set in, and adjust. We're not looking for perfect balance all of the time, but it's about acknowledging the stress signals and starting early on to do things to help to mitigate before we reach beyond where we're literally crashing and burning, where we feel we have no choices.
Okay. I love analogies. So anybody who knows me knows I love analogies. Okay. The balance. Okay. We're talking like the little ball with like the flat thing, and you're trying, like when I used to work out, I say when I used to, right? Because I know you are in your spare time, you actually do train people.
Yes.
But that's what we're talking about, right? The ball.
Yeah, they all look different. The one that I use it's round. The ball is really small. So it's not a Bosu ball where half of it's a ball. It's a small ball at the bottom.
And you stand up on top of this thing. Like that alone is worth, hello, people, right? Okay.
It's fun.
So I have to say balance. Okay. First of all, I believe balance is bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think you just proved it, because you have to use one muscle at a time. So one of the things that I'm always talking with our clients about, and honestly, I speak about it too, right? Because I think this is why we have such synergy. What I've learned from a great mentor of mine who was a doctor, his name is Dr. Danny Friedland. he was working on some mindfulness classes, and because he's a doctor, he was really looking at the science behind it. And then you have Kristen Neff on self-compassion. And then there's her name, I'm forgetting her name right now, but the three of them combined came out of Danny's, sometimes all the ideas come out. He said something to me, and he said, it's not that you can't cope. It's that something really matters to you. Kelly McGonigal, something really matters to you from a stress standpoint. So it's not a coping thing. You're not, you know how to cope, but it really matters to you. And that the demands are exceeding your internal resources to manage what you would call fatigue, I think.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's landing for me so clearly is that inviting anybody who's listening to us and anyone that you love or lead, sharing this concept, whether it's the ball balancing on the ball and the fatigue muscle, or the fact that you're judging yourself that you can't cope when you used to, that's actually just a sign that something needs to be shifted, whether it's your mindset, your nutrition, your sleep, asking for help. There's so many different ways, but I love what you're saying so much about being aware of the signals. You called them stress signals. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'll tell you, Lisa, I suffered my own burnout, which is how I ever really got into this work 9 years ago. I didn't acknowledge, again, I was that high performer. I was focused on success. I just thought that the knots between my shoulders, the lack of sleep, the literally feeling intoxicated every single day because I was only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night. I thought all of that was just what I was supposed to do to be successful. I mean, it's so sad. Early on, I suffered burnout. It took me 13 months. So just over a year before I completely crashed. I think it was by like month 2, my own husband, Matt, he was seeing it. He was already seeing that. And I just refused. So it's so important to be aware of when you're going beyond capacity. And it's not a sign of weakness. In fact, the sign of weakness is ignoring it and just letting it status quo, like let everybody else decide what's happening for you. That to me is more of a sign of weakness than saying, you know what? This doesn't feel right. This isn't working right for me. I want to be at my best self. I want to be a peak performer. And this is not how we do it. So I have to find ways to change.
Yeah. For me, I'm just saying amen. If I could like play some background sound effects, I'd be like, oh, actually I might have that. Hold on. Right. I agree with you. And here's what I know. Here's what I know. I don't think I've told this story to you. Burnout happened for me after I became a mom, and I became a mom at 43. So I had my set ways of working as a high performer. My career was on fire. Life was amazing. I really wanted to be a mom. Finally was able to conceive, deliver. And then I kept acting and working like this was just kind of like, I don't know, I painted a room or something. Like, I don't even know. Like, what? You just brought a human being into the world, and now you're new in this role, and you're still trying to keep that role going. And I was doing it all. I mean, it was insane. And one day, so I would take meetings in the car. I would take meetings home. I would run. I wanted to make sure I picked her up from preschool when it was time. And I couldn't find my car one day. So I was rolling my wheelie thing with lower back pain, I looked like Hunchback of Notre Dame walking through, and I couldn't find my car. And I knew I was going to be late. And I just started crying in the parking lot. Like I couldn't find my car. A colleague drives by and says, "Are you lost?" And I mean, thank goodness I had sunglasses on. I was so mortified because she had seen me circling. I was like, oh, no, just getting my steps in before I pick up my daughter. Like, what a bunch of crap, right? It was like this instinctual protection mode. And I'm on the phone going, I think we might have to pay because I'm going to be late, honey. I can't find the car. And he was like, wait, I can do this thing on the phone and figure out where you parked. And he stayed on the phone with me to find my car.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt so broken and so incapable and so not able to cope.
Yeah.
And so horribly unqualified to lead or love or mother or any partner. I mean, it was just awful. But I didn't do anything about it, Colleen. I just kept going that way. So what did we do? We got a tile for my keys so I could beep my keys.
Yes.
I knew on my phone I started using apps to cope. Right. So I would invite anyone to go, hey, if you're doing all that for the things that you used to be able to do normally, you might be in the zone,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so
No.
I feel you. And the thing, what I'd love to invite you into conversation on is this feeling that I know happens a lot with our clients. Always on, never good enough, we'll replace you tomorrow. The next layoff, your name's going to be on that list. We manage through layoffs. So keep your shit in line. Don't get too shiny and bright, and like stay on track, right? Being led by leaders who are not developed, that are fabulous. They're one muscle in excellence in engineering and tech is there, but the other muscle of empathy, compassion, innovation, creativity, it's never been built. So they're like all contorted. And they're like, well, why are people leaving? Like, well, I don't understand. And people are burning out like on massive amounts. And so in that kind of, if I could paint that picture for you, what comes to mind on things that people can do in their own as individuals, but also as leaders of these organizations?
Yes. Well, I'm not surprised that this happens, Lisa. So Harvard Business Review study shared that the average age that people are promoted versus the average age that they actually receive training and leadership, there's a 9-year gap. So we
That is
see,
so not surprising.
isn't this crazy, right? So we see these amazing individual performers who are promoted based upon their individual contributions for being a high performer. Yet they're thrown into needing to use a skill set that many of them don't even have. And it's not to their fault necessarily. They haven't been born with it, because some people do have some natural born leadership skills, but majority of people need to be trained. And so when you put somebody in who is a great individual contributor, yet they don't have any of the leadership skills, and now they're leading a team of, even if it's one person, right? It doesn't even matter how many, that one person is not receiving the leadership, the guidance, the coaching. So I'm not surprised to hear this.
Yeah.
And then these poor people are spinning because they feel inadequate. Right now, they're being set up for failure. They can't do the rest of their new role properly, and they have turnover, etc. So there's no wonder that this is happening. So so much of this is about awareness. Number one. Not just awareness of the stress signals, but awareness when you're promoted into a leadership role is that it's no longer about you. What you did as an individual contributor, that was about you. That was about showing your skills, your knowledge. It's not anymore. As a leader, it's having the awareness that this is about others and it's about your organization. And then with that, leading with humanity. That's humanity for yourself, realizing you're a human being, that you need time for recovery, but then also that your employees, your direct reports, they are actual human beings. There's this fallacy of leave your, right, old school business practice, leave your emotions at the door. Well, that's literally impossible. I mean, human beings are hardwired for emotions. So when we realize as leaders, when you acknowledge that you're leading other human beings who have actual feelings, thoughts, past, experiences, they're bringing all of that to the table. And when we can start interacting as just human beings, we're literally breaking down so many barriers, and the actual work can start to get done, whether that's combating burnout or becoming a better leader. So yeah, those are just the top two things that I find myself training on with newly promoted leaders.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. So I heard you say two things that I want to just double click on: awareness. And you said not just about your stress, but awareness that your role has changed, your scope has changed, or it's not just about you anymore. And then you said the word humanity, and I could feel my heart open up a little bit, because one of the things that I know for sure to combat burnout is to recognize you're not alone. Right. When I started talking to other new moms who were in executive roles, and them all going, I can't find my car either, I was like, oh, okay, we got to do something. But when I was by myself, the shame, the self-doubt, the judgment, that I can't cope, all of that kept my amygdala wide open for alert, and I wasn't able to be creative or innovate. And I knew what I learned. And my burnout was definitely, that was just one example. This concept of tend and befriend. that when you share and you find commonalities, which is why I think employee resource groups are awesome, because you actually share stories and you talk about things. And you and I shared our burnout stories together. I was like, okay, not alone, right?
Yes.
And then there's that rise to the challenge, which is the other way to when you can get to your prefrontal cortex and your executive functioning, it's like, okay, game on. Now we got this, right? But you can't game on. Now we got this every day. The Olympics don't happen every day. The Olympics are every 4 years.
Right.
Right. But like, I feel like sometimes the leaders are just like, every day is the gold medal day. And I'm like, no, some days are not gold medal days.
Yeah. Lisa, you bring up a couple of really good points. And I want to really emphasize the first thing that you brought up, which is about the sharing of story and connecting with other people. Very similar to you. I literally wore my my stress, or my busyness is what I'll say. I wore my busyness like a cape. I mean, I was trying to outdo every other person. Oh, you had to run these errands. Well, let me tell you about the 10x errands I had to do. Or, oh, you had to get this prepared. Well, I did that while I was traveling back from Colorado to Southern California, right?
Yep.
It was ridiculous. But I did it because it was a cape covering that shame that you mentioned, because I was surrounded at the time. The company that I worked for was just unbelievably talented people. And the female leaders in the organization I never heard them talk about any of their stress. I literally thought I was the only person.
Mm-hmm.
So about, I don't know, it was a couple of months into my burnout recovery, where one day I'm in the office and I'm in the doorway of a colleague's office. And I just felt compelled to start sharing with her what I had gone through the year prior. I don't even remember what triggered this. And I start literally telling her how, after 13 months, same with you, caught myself just crying. I was crying hysterically late one night in my office. It was December of 2013. I said, I have to quit my job. I don't know how I can be a wife, a mom, and this is impossible, right? I thought this was my only option. So I'm sharing this with one of my colleagues, and she's just staring at me. So finally, I stopped talking. I'm freaking out in my mind. I'm thinking, she thinks I'm a lunatic. She thinks I'm incapable. She's going to run and tell everybody how I wanted to quit my job a couple of months ago. Like I completely screwed myself, right?
Yep.
So I stopped talking, and she says, I am so sorry I haven't said anything, but it's like I'm looking in a mirror. I just had the same conversation over the weekend. And it was the first time I realized, quite truthfully, that other women were experiencing this. I mean, women in my own office.
Yep.
So it is so important to be sharing those stories to see that, number one, you're not alone. And number two, how do other people cope with it? How do other people start to recover? The strategies, the answers are out there. We just have to share.
Yeah. Yes. This is so, okay. We're going all in on this one, because what I know is for teams. Thank you for sharing what you just shared, Colleen, because when we work with teams and you design the meeting, let's just say, how might we make meetings more useful to combat burnout? Well, I'll tell you, number one, you design them to create space for conversation that is not a one-way dialogue. And you can do it two ways. When are you at your worst and when are you at your best? And you ask everybody that question. And guess I do this all the time. You know what happens? Me too. Yeah. When you're at your worst, I'm cynical, I'm grumpy, I wear the cape. I'm one-sided, I'm opinionated. When am I at my best? Relaxed, in the flow, curious, right? So when we do that with teams, you can feel the energy shift. And I say, so how might you leverage this in your team meetings? It's one thing for us to facilitate an engagement. Right. We just gave you this tool. And so what I'll say to anyone listening is to even come up with your own, I used to call them weather reports. What's the weather like? What's weighing on you? What's keeping you up at night? What are you proud of? Like, you have to balance it so people feel like, okay, this isn't just like, you're going to set me up to be like, who should I lay off if I tell you I'm crying in the bathroom? But to really say, I'm super proud we did this and I'm still worried about this. That alone can start to presence. Right. Yes. And then another thing we do too, is we do this give ask experiment with people. What are you really good at? And what do you naturally like to give? Right. And then what do you need? Yeah. So if the energy exchange is even, And it's created in a way, I think it's a very tangible thing anybody can do right now with their family, with their team, because your colleague looking at you and saying, I feel like I'm looking in a mirror. Don't tell me there's not someone else on your team right now feeling the way you feel. You just have to figure out how to get to that, because that's back to humanity.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll even share, I was a leader when I was going through that burnout. So I masked and hid it from everyone other than, my family, who was surrounded by an insane lunatic coming home every night, just screaming. I mean, screaming because there were socks in the middle of the floor. I mean, it was ridiculous. I still tell my husband, Matt, to this day, I do not understand how you did not pack up and the kids and leave me. I don't get it. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
But at work, nobody had a clue. I mean, I showed up like I was some kind of rock star, just killing it every day. And what happened again after the recovery, when I started sharing my story with I remember this like it happened yesterday. I'm traveling with one of my direct reports, and I just start telling him how, I'd only been sleeping a few hours, and we'd been going through this multi-million-dollar contract negotiation at the time. And I'm telling him about all of these things that I was juggling and stressed about and what was happening and how, it all was taking me to the edge. And he says, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were going through that. He says, I would have jumped in and done more, right? Like my own direct report would have stepped up. The other thing that I saw in that moment is that by not sharing, right, by making it seem like everything was perfect, I was doing a disservice to this direct report of mine, because in fact, he wanted my job, right? The goal is that I'm filling the leadership pipeline. I'm finding my replacement. And he's somebody who was really interested, but I wasn't painting an accurate picture of potentially what could be the challenges or what the stress level looked like in my role and how to prepare and coach him for that. So I wasn't even doing a great job as a leader by hiding, here I thought I was, right? I'm sheltering my team from all of the stress. And it's like, no, we've got to share some level of vulnerability, some level. I'm not saying that I need to just, sit and cry with my direct reports, right? That's not appropriate and professional. But yeah, that's the other piece for me that I acknowledged as a leader, how important it is to share some of what the reality looks like.
I want to scream so loud. You just gave me something. I've had this conversation with so many people, and I just want to land this. You are doing a disservice to your team by not giving them the realistic preview of the job they want.
Yes.
You are doing a disservice to your team by not giving them the realistic job preview of the job they want. Okay.
Yes.
Frick. I need to go make some fun. I want to hang up and call somebody right now. Like, I owe someone an apology. I want to say this. Throughout my career, I did that too. And I would say things like, I shield you from a bunch of this stuff. Like, my job is to open doors, remove obstacles, and let you keep going. Right. I never looked at my job through the lens you just shared, which is my job is to give you the realistic preview. Now, if you want the job, I'm going to sit you down and say, here's some things you got to look at. Right. I was never threatened like they're going to get my job. I always wanted to promote, and this is why we do what we do.
Yes.
Yet when I was in the emergency room, my colleague and I were working until 7:00 at night. And I politely say, I think I'm going to take myself to the emergency room. I got this like weird pain going up my arm and up my neck. And I don't even want to Google if it's a heart attack, because I might just have one if I think it is one.
Right.
I'm just going to like mosey on down. I'm bringing my laptop and we'll finish the slides. Right. She says, hell no. Are you driving if you think you're having a heart attack? At least let me drive you so you don't kill anybody. This was her words.
Yeah.
I'm like, good point.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we can talk about it on the way. Let's get these slides done. We get to and I don't call my husband or my daughter because I don't want him to worry. And she's like, let's call him. No. Like, what kind of realistic preview was that for her? Like, you don't lean into your family if you're scared. You don't take care of your health. You bring your laptop and you keep working, right? Yes. We literally have a picture of us in the emergency room working on the deck. I sent it to my VP that night. And I said, hey, a little bit of a hiccup, but we'll be there tomorrow. And look, slides are done. I still have this picture. It is like what in the hell?
It's like the epitome of everything that we're talking about, Lisa. You absolutely.
And I never thought until you just said that. So I hope this is a wake up call that someone gets this message, because I didn't, and I still had the recovery, and we are still talking today. And, you know, she was like, I just want to help you. Right. I actually had an allergic reaction to antibiotics.
Oh.
I had been forcing down my gullet because I kept having bronchitis, and I knew I had to present. Like, the whole thing is
right.
so obvious when you're not in it.
Yeah.
However, I never once looked at it that way, Colleen. I'm so grateful you brought that up, that shielding everything and never talking about, yeah, I'm balancing all this, or I'm worried about this. It doesn't make you weak. You're actually helping the person see if that's the role they want to be in.
Absolutely.
It's like, okay, mic drop. Like, I just like, what that is so good.
So this stems for me from childhood. I'm an only child. I was raised by two amazing parents. They are just the most wonderful people. And they wanted me to be raised in a very loving and peaceful home. So my parents legitimately never argued in front of me. Now, while that provided a sense of safety, and I wouldn't necessarily ask that to be changed, I didn't, though, as I became a teenager and young adult, understand how to have a disagreement or a constructive type of argument with somebody. So unfortunately, you know, when I'm in high school and having my first, you know, boyfriends and relationships, I unfortunately adopted a very dysfunctional way of dealing with it. I took on my boyfriend at the time, what was the dysfunction that was happening in his family. And I later shared as I became an adult, like, oh, I kind of wish that my parents had some disagreements in front of me. So the modeled behavior, I could know how to do that. And then that's exactly that moment when I'm in the car with my colleague or my teammate, and he's telling me all this. I'm like, I just did to my direct report what I wished my parents hadn't done. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's not going, letting the pendulum swing the complete opposite way and just sharing everything, but having those moments where, one, it's showing them what potentially the real world looks like in that position, but it's also showcasing that you're not perfect, that you're a human being, and that it allows more connection between you and your direct reports. It builds a place for them to feel comfortable sharing. Like Lisa, you were sharing that wonderful exercise that you do when you're working and facilitating with teams about getting people to share what works and what doesn't. Well, if the leader never shares any of their weaknesses or what's not working, how is anybody else going to feel safe to share? So it's another way to be able to, build that psychological safety for individuals and teams.
Yeah. There's a thought that just keeps running through my head right now that this is like a pop quiz for you.
Uh-oh.
Someone did back in those days, if someone had asked for an informational interview, so they want to know like a day in the life of Colleen in this role. Would you have been more transparent in an informational interview than you would have been with your direct report?
Yes, I would have been if it was a neutral party, like an informational.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. With
so it's just someone has a friend and they want to get into that type of job, and they're like, hey, can I have 15 minutes to get a realistic insight?
Absolutely.
I bet, right? So here's, I think, something we can help people with is think about what you would say in an informational interview and what then might be useful to your directs.
Yeah, I love that question. That's a great exercise to go through. Absolutely.
It just popped into my head listening to you talk, because I thought, I know I would have. If I was in an informational interview, I would have been like, yeah, there's not a lot of sleep, and there's a lot of like self-doubt and judgment.
Yeah.
So check yourself, what? Yeah.
Okay. As well as I think it would have, that approach, Lisa, also would have helped going full circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is then the awareness for yourself.
Yes.
So asking, if I had been asked that question and started to answer, well, you have to do this and this, I would have had some awareness early on. Well, wait a minute. Who's telling me I can only sleep 4 or 5 hours a night? Who's telling me that my job has to look this way? Who told me I have to take on this whole other book of business? I mean, did I ask? So I think it would have even helped me be aware, whoa, hold on, which is how I started to recover of I was making those decisions. It was me. I wasn't challenging. I wasn't asking for change. It was 100% on me.
Sister, OMG.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that we actually offer in our business is a power assessment, and we look at your 6 sources of power. And then we also have any client, and then we also have them look at their influence capacity. We look at like 3 things: how you're leveraging your power, where are you influencing, what do you look at influencing when you do it, and then also we look at like your natural modes of operation and your strengths. And inevitably, especially for the female leaders, because I do a lot of work with women returning to the workforce in tech after taking a break, this personal power, the knowledge power, right? You knew it all, but you were giving the power away, even in your own decision making. You weren't even asking the question, right? Because I know I did that. So I think the big offer right here for anyone listening is ask, where are you giving your power away? What assumptions are you making? Have you said yes, and yes, happy to take that project on, and what needs to drop or get reprioritized?
Right.
Or yes, and totally get that this is a critical, and here's the other 3 things you told me are critical. Can we have a conversation? Because I think the word no, people are like, oh, I can't say no. So I say, fine, say yes, and right.
Yeah.
Use that as the connector to go ask the question, because I didn't do that either. Colleen, I never yes, and it was always a yes.
Absolutely.
And I was so famous. Oh, my team used to say, it's the right thing to do, right, Lisa? I'm like, yes, it is, right? Like that. And I'm like, what's the right thing to do? Like, be fully present at work and get amazing results, and be present at home and have loving relationships. It's not on that balance ball back to like everything work and nothing home, or everything home, nothing work. At least for me, it was like, how do I like right side the ship? So I love that you're talking about power and choices.
Yeah. So there's 2 things I would say. So thinking about that balance board, now there are times where you do focus in or kind of shift that balance into one part of the board, right? So I often use examples like, for those who work in accounting, right? CPAs, your January through April is going to be a little bit more focused there. And that's okay, as long as you don't stay there beyond capacity, right? That you are aware of what those stress signals are, and you start to shift. My mom was in the hospital for 5 months. So there was a period of time where I shifted my focus into my relationships, being my mom. But when I started to be aware of those stress signals and where I was being depleted in other areas, I had to reshift. So I agree with you earlier, as you said, Lisa. I don't use the word balance. I mean, even if you see me standing on that balance board, I'm never 100% balanced. It's always shifting.
Yeah.
But then with that said, as you mentioned, this yes and the power, that brings me to the number one thing that I share with individuals, and this is leaders, frontline employees, the C-suite, for goodness sakes, is communication has to be there. We too often make assumptions that people know what you're going through. So just because you have a manager, you have, somebody that you report into, do not ever assume they have an inkling of a clue of what your workload is, how much time you're spending, your stress level, even if they are also a parent or taking care of aging parents, right? Whatever the outside of professional scope responsibilities are for them, do not assume they have any idea. So I'm 100% aligned with you. Every time we say yes on its own, we get rid of our power. So make sure that you're communicating that when you are asked to do something, it's okay. Thank you. I often say, thank you. I'm interested in that, but I have these 3 priorities. Let's talk about how we can do that. Or if you're sitting here, as you mentioned early on, we're 2 years in, and if you're just like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? I challenge you. Have you sat down and had a very realistic conversation? And one time doesn't cut it. And it's about going in from a place of, solution and collaboration. It really, but don't assume, just do not assume.
I love it. I want to go back to your high performer piece too on what you're saying right here. High performers, in my experience, and dare I say I am one, a high achiever, I think is the word we want to use. High achievers, like we strive, we have a lot of capacity, we can get a lot done. Don't necessarily value themselves as they value others. So I found myself pushing on all of my team, take your vacation, block it out. I won't bug you. It's okay. But yet I wouldn't do that for myself. So if I could have ever asked for one thing from anyone who was my leader that I reported to, I would have said, hold me accountable to my vacations. It's not something I'm good at. And then I would have been able to tell if they were really had my back or not. Right. Because so many times they're just like, yeah, we'll just, when I'll never forget going to unlimited vacation time. Right. And everyone's like, it's this wonderful thing. I'm like, oh yeah, all those high achievers are screwed.
Right.
They got nothing to hang on to now to be like, well, I'm going to use it or lose it. Nope. It's like someday, it's the someday vision. So I think knowing yourself enough and asking for what you need from your leader too, is something in the communication lane that you're talking about that I wish I would have done more of myself. And I was really good at protecting my team and always, isn't it your daughter's birthday? Why don't you take that day? Isn't there something going on? Like, didn't the green card come through for your uncle? You should go there, cause I knew what was going on in their lives, but I never did that for myself.
No,
even now I still struggle. So I have a team around me. I'm like, help me out. And we block days and I plan for it. But it's a muscle I didn't build either. And it may be from childhood too. I don't all roads lead to childhood at some level, right? It's how we're formed, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you were one of those, children who worked hard and you received good grades or praise, like that just became, your second nature of this equals that. And so you're always going to do this, right?
Yeah.
And because you, Lisa, are a caring human being and you care about your team, you don't want them to suffer, but you just still continue to do this equals that for you, right? And I did the same exact thing.
I know you did.
Yeah.
I know, one of the things I didn't say, I just want to land this for you that Colleen spent 15 years in corporate world. Okay. She specialized in training and leading sales teams. And I live in sales land too. And you and I both know you want to talk about achievement oriented. Like you don't make your number, you don't have a job.
Yes.
Okay. So let's not let that get lost in all of this conversation that we're having. And your leadership and professional and personal development skills were honed when you had your own burnout, which you actually had the negative effects of poor leadership and lack of self-care. I think that's just weaved through everything we've talked about today. And I just want to talk about the concept of self-care before, we transition into how we're really going to land this for people. I don't think it's bubble baths and massages. I love bubble baths and massages, but when I was burning out, that was not going to stop it. So when we go back to, it's been 2 years and you're barely hanging on, and I'm like, hey, go take a bubble bath. They're like, really? Right. So can we just really have a conversation about self-care for a minute, Colleen? I think it would really support anybody right now who's at that 2 year of like, don't even talk to me about getting a massage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I love those things. And in a holistic view, a portfolio view of all the things that we can do, those are things that do work, right? But when we're getting to this really on the verge piece, the sad thing is, Lisa, is that it's things we all know. We're just not choosing to say, it is a non-negotiable. Number one is sleep. I mean, who on this planet doesn't know that you need to have a minimum of 7 hours of sleep? Granted, there's a small percentage of people who can function at full capacity on the 4 or 5 hours, right? I highly doubt there are more than a couple of your listeners who fit into that small percentage. So we know that, yet we're so quick to sacrifice sleep in order to get our job done or take care of the family or do all of these other things. So look, a massage is not going to replace an hour of sleep. I'm sorry, an hour of sleep. extra is what you need. So then it becomes design your non-negotiables in your life, design and put those into place first, and then you put your work around that. It has to be your things in life that are going to keep you functioning at optimal levels. Sleep, the right nutrition, exercise. And I'm not talking about you need to go, here's my other thing. Not talking about you need to go to the gym 5 days, 6 days, 7 days a week for an hour or two. I am not let's completely up level and throw out our whole schedule. I'm even saying if you only get 5 hours of sleep, I'm not telling you to go get 9, I'm telling you to add 30 minutes in. Exercise in between meetings or Zoom calls, can you just go stand outside and walk in circles for 3 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get some sunlight, get movement. But it's got to be the fundamentals, Lisa. Again, I'm all for massages. It was one of the things I did in my burnout recovery, but it wasn't until 6 months later.
Mm-hmm.
My first things I did in my burnout recovery were to figure out how do I get more time at home so I can sleep.
Totally. I think I slept like, who's the Disney character that sleeps forever? I don't even know her name. I can't remember it right now.
Yeah.
My husband was like, I had to go and check if you were breathing. You slept because I took a medical leave. I slept nonstop, and I'd wake up and go and right back. I was like, my body was so finally like, okay, I'm all in on sleep. I even called my therapist a couple of times. I'm like, I'm still sleeping, and I needed to move my therapy appointments because my body was just like listening to your body. So in my mind, what I'm hearing you say, and I think it's so important, is listen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care is like paying attention to your body.
Yes.
If you feel drunk and you don't have enough sleep. If your skin's all scratchy, you don't have enough water.
Yeah.
If you're hungry all the time, your nutrition's off. Like the simplest of things. And I started with 5 minutes walking outside. I literally would just go out, put my hands up and let the sun hit me. And I was like, I feel better already.
Yeah.
2 minutes of quiet. It's the simplest. It's not this profound change your whole life right now.
No. And that's so hard for people, especially those that are suffering from burnout. Like you don't even feel like you have enough time. So why would you want to try to create these crazy things that take an inordinate amount of time in your schedule? And I laugh because even in personal life, I'll hear people who say, oh, I've got this really great, kind of fix it solution, right? I always think about weight loss stuff, right? Because that's like one of the number one things, at least in America, is we're always looking for weight loss. And it's like this crazy new invention, this crazy new program. And I get it. We want to believe that there is this magic thing, and it's not. It's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's sleep. Like you said, Lisa, it's sleep, drink water, eat the right foods, and that alone, just those little things. And look, I get it. I know that people feel like I don't have enough time to do those things. So those have to be non-negotiables then. So what can you do to, obviously we can't create more time, but use your time differently. And that has to be things like asking for help, delegating, saying no to things. You just have to. I always laugh. My husband, when he recognized, that I was starting to burn out, he was starting to, I'll do the laundry with sheets and towels and all of that. And I'd come home and open my linen closet. I'm like, oh, he folded the towels wrong. Okay, first of all, there's no right or wrong way to fold towels. And secondly, who's going in my linen closet to judge how my towels look? Like that is just absolutely ridiculous. So we have to be able, as high achievers, to let go of the things that we don't need to be high achievers at, so that we can take care of ourselves in the most fundamental ways.
I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I've learned, I've laughed. I mean, we went from awareness to, balance balls. We've talked about communication at the organizational level, what you can do on individual level. I love the non-negotiable conversation because it's not a massage. I mean, maybe that might be your non-negotiable, but if you're not sleeping, a massage ain't going to do it for you. Right?
Correct.
And I also know music. So every listener is going to know music really can elevate and help you be creative and help you feel grounded. I'm so curious, what's a song that you go to when you want to raise your energy?
So the funny thing is, Lisa, that the song I'm going to share with you makes it sound like it's a song that leads you to burnout.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I want to caution. But my song is Unstoppable by Sia. And the reason why, first of all, just if you listen to the words and the energy behind the music, I tell everyone they need to have a walk-on song, right? Professional athletes, they have walk-on songs. Like you, I'm a speaker. I have a walk-on song. That's my walk-on song. And it's the thing that just makes you feel powerful, that it just reminds you that even when you are hitting burnout, you're unstoppable. Now, that doesn't mean you're doing everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're doing everything. It means that you are being creative and taking care of yourself, being aware, I'll say, being creative, being aware. And when you do that, you are unstoppable. You may not know all of the answers now, but trust in yourself that you have the resources. You can figure it out.
I love your song so much, and I will just tap into that anybody who feels like they have no choice, they have no power, this is all life is, go put that song Unstoppable on and ask yourself the question, what's the smallest, most immediate action I can take right now to fuel myself, right? Not to deplete myself, because burnout's all about depletion, but what can you do to fuel yourself? What can you do to connect with someone else? How might I be unstoppable? Might be the question. Like, what can you do? And it's not about doing more. It's just about asking yourself a creative question to unlock your soul's knowing, because your body knows. You just got to slow down enough and listen.
Yeah.
Oh, Colleen, thank you for your time. Thank you for your stories. Thank you for the tips, for the conversation. For anyone who wants to find you or connect with you, where's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. Just type in my name, ColleenHauk.com. That's the easiest way.
Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Lisa, this conversation is so important. And you're right. It's not about always finding new ways or new things. It's going back to the basics and getting rid of a lot of crap.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to do it alone.
No.
Right.
No.
Well, Colleen, I will put everything in the show notes. I'm so excited for everyone. For those of you inspired to do more, Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. We have everything listed there. So check it out. We've got you covered, and go make it an unstoppable day. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. Head on over to wherever you find your other favorite podcasts and subscribe to Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. Leave a review with some of that 5-star love. And let's keep it real. There's a reason why you're listening to this. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa and the team at RLD Group have been in your shoes, sat in those meetings, and experienced everything you can imagine as a leader in tech. They can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step by visiting rldgroupllc.com. RLD Group helps develop technical experts lacking people leadership skills from being a company's biggest liability into their greatest asset. Find out more at rldgroupllc.com. Thanks again for listening. Catch you next time on Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre, powered by RLD Group, as we help you reboot your leadership drive.